Metal screamed against stone as the damaged fighter ship carved a burning path across the rocky surface of Dust Rock 7. Sparks flew in all directions while the ship bounced twice before sliding to a stop against a pile of loose boulders. Smoke poured from the twisted hull, and the sharp smell of burned electronics filled the thin air. Inside the cockpit, Wrath struggled against the energy restraints that held him pinned to his pilot seat. The emergency lockdown system had activated during the crash, wrapping blue bands of force around his arms and legs. These restraints were designed to protect pilots during combat, but now they trapped him like a prisoner in his own ship. His breathing came in short gasps as warning lights flashed red all around him. The life support system wheezed and stuttered. Wrath could hear the air recycling units grinding to a halt one by one. According to the flickering display in front of him, he had maybe 6 hours of breathable air left. After that, he would suffocate in his own cockpit. The irony was not lost on him that he had survived the greatest space battle of his career, only to die slowly on this forgotten rock. Wrath was a war singer of the hegemony, one of their elite warriors trained from childhood to fight and die for the Empire. His kind were bred for combat, enhanced with genetic modifications that made them stronger and faster than baseline humans. But all his training and enhancements meant nothing now. He could not break free from energy restraints designed by his own people. Hours passed as Wrath tried everything he could think of. He attempted to override the restraint system using voice commands, but the ship's computer was too damaged to respond properly. He tried to reach the manual release controls, but they were just inches beyond his fingertips. The energy bands around his wrists and ankles held firm, pulsing with a soft blue light that mocked his helplessness. The air grew thicker and staler with each breath. Wrath found himself thinking about his homeworld, about the training academies where young war singers learned to kill efficiently. He thought about the last battle, about the human ships that had fought so desperately against impossible odds. He thought about the orders he had been given and the orders he had chosen to ignore. That was why he was running, why he had stolen the data files that now sat encrypted in his ship's memory banks. A sound from outside made him freeze. Footsteps. Someone was walking around his crashed ship. Wrath listened carefully, trying to identify the pattern of movement. The steps were too light to be hegemony soldiers in their heavy combat armor. Too irregular to be military at all. This sounded like someone exploring, maybe scavenging for valuable parts. The footsteps stopped near the main hatch. Wrath heard scraping sounds, then a few sharp taps against the hull. Someone was definitely out there, probably trying to figure out how to get inside. Wrath prepared himself mentally for whatever would come next. If this was an enemy soldier, he would die fighting even while trapped in his seat. If it was a scavenger, maybe he could bargain for his life. The hatch cycled open with a grinding sound that meant the hydraulics were badly damaged. Fresh air flowed into the cockpit, carrying the dusty smell of the asteroid's surface. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the cockpit as someone moved carefully through the ship. Wrath could hear them examining the damaged systems, occasionally muttering in what sounded like standard Galactic with a heavy accent. Finally, a figure appeared in the cockpit doorway. It was a human male, shorter and lighter built than the soldiers Wrath was used to fighting. The human wore practical work clothes covered in grease stains and tool belts loaded with mechanical devices. His face was weathered from years of hard living, but his eyes showed intelligence and caution rather than fear. Most surprisingly, a tiny creature perched on the human's shoulder. It looked like a miniature dragon from ancient Earth legends, no bigger than Wrath's fist. The little beast had scales that shifted color from green to blue in the light, and its eyes glowed with an inner fire as it studied the trapped alien warrior. Wrath tried to make his voice threatening despite his situation. He spoke in broken Standard Galactic, the trade language most species used for communication. "You stay back. This ship, property of hegemony. Touch nothing or face consequences." The human tilted his head, studying Wrath with the same careful attention he might give to a complex piece of machinery. His eyes moved from the energy restraints to the failing life support displays to the sweat beading on Wrath's forehead. The man seemed to understand exactly how desperate the situation was. Instead of responding to Wrath's threats, the human stepped closer to examine the restraint system. The tiny dragon on his shoulder made soft chirping sounds, almost like it was talking to its companion. The human nodded as if he understood what the creature was saying. "Keep quiet," the human whispered in accented standard Galactic. His voice was calm but urgent. "Your people. They still look for you?" Wrath blinked in surprise. He had expected demands for information, or attempts to steal his ship's technology. He had not expected what sounded almost like concern for his welfare. The question about his people suggested this human understood something about Wrath's situation. The tiny dragon suddenly became very still, its glowing eyes fixed on something beyond the cockpit. Its scales shifted to a deep red color and it made a low warning sound. The human immediately tensed, his hand moving to a device on his belt. "Trouble coming," the human said quietly. "We help each other or we both die here." Wrath felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing life support. If hegemony hunters had found his crash site, they would kill anyone who had seen their technology. This human was now in as much danger as Wrath himself. The sound of approaching engines grew louder outside the ship. Multiple vessels, moving in the systematic search pattern that Wrath recognized from his own military training. His hunters had found him at last. The human met Wrath's eyes directly. "My name is Sam, this is Pip." He gestured to the tiny dragon. "We are going to get you out of there, but you have to trust us." For the first time in his life, Wrath found himself hoping that a human could succeed where hegemony technology had failed. Sam moved with practiced efficiency around the alien cockpit, his trained eyes quickly identifying the failing systems that kept Wrath alive. Years of salvaging wrecked ships had taught him to read the signs of imminent catastrophe. Regardless of whether the technology was human or alien, the life support readings were getting worse by the minute. Pip chirped softly from Sam's shoulder, its tiny claws gripping the fabric of his work shirt. The little dragon's scales had shifted back to their normal green color, but its eyes remained alert. Sam had learned to trust Pip's instincts completely over the years they had been together. When the dragon sensed danger, trouble usually followed within minutes. Wrath watched the human work with growing confusion. Everything he had been taught about humans suggested they were violent, treacherous creatures who showed no mercy to their enemies. Yet this one was clearly trying to save his life. It made no sense according to hegemony doctrine. "Why do you help me?" Wrath asked, his voice strained from the effort of breathing increasingly stale air. Sam glanced up from the control panel he was examining. "Because you are dying and I can fix it." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe, then went back to tracing damaged circuits with his fingers. The answer struck Wrath as impossibly simple. In hegemony culture, everything had to serve a strategic purpose. No one acted without considering how it would benefit their position or advance their cause. The idea of helping someone simply because they needed help was foreign to everything Wrath had been taught. Pip suddenly stiffened on Sam's shoulder, its scales shifting rapidly through several colors before settling on deep red. The tiny dragon let out a sharp whistle that Sam recognized as a danger signal. Outside the ship, the sound of engines was getting louder and more focused. "Hunter ships," Wrath said grimly. "They track my emergency beacon. When they find me alive, they kill anyone who has seen hegemony technology." Sam's hands stilled on the control panel. "Including me. Including you." For a moment, the only sound was the labored breathing of the failing life support system. Then Sam made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He pulled a small device from his tool belt and jammed it into an access port near Wrath's restraint controls. "Pip, need you to short out the beacon," Sam said quietly. The tiny dragon immediately launched itself from Sam's shoulder and landed on the main console. Its scales began to glow with an inner light, as bioelectric energy coursed through its small body. Pip pressed its claws against specific points on the control surface, and sparks flew, as the emergency beacon died with an electronic squeal. Wrath stared in amazement. He had never seen anything like the little creature's ability to interface directly with electronic systems. "What is that thing?" "Long story," Sam muttered, working frantically to bypass the restraint system while the approaching ships grew closer. Short version is Pip was an experiment. Someone tried to create a living computer that could bond with a partner and enhance their abilities. The energy restraints flickered as Sam's modifications took effect. Wrath felt the bands around his wrists and ankles weaken slightly, but they still held firm. Outside, the engine sounds were almost on top of them now. "We need to move," Sam said urgently. "Those ships will land any second." Pip chirped and pointed one tiny claw at a secondary control panel. Sam followed its gesture and found another access port. "Good eye, partner." While Sam worked, Wrath tried to understand what was happening. A human was risking his life to save a hegemony warrior. A tiny bioengineered creature was helping them both escape detection. Nothing in his military training had prepared him for a situation like this. The restraints finally gave way with a soft pop of released energy. Wrath immediately tried to stand, but his legs buckled after hours of immobility. Sam caught his arm and helped steady him, showing surprising strength for someone so much smaller than a war singer. "Cave system about 200 meters that way," Sam said, pointing toward the back of the ship. "Can you make it?" Before Wrath could answer, the sound of landing ships filled the air outside. Heavy footsteps in combat armor began moving around the crash site. Voices spoke in the harsh military dialect of the hegemony as soldiers began their search. Sam helped Wrath to the emergency exit at the rear of the ship. The hatch opened onto a landscape of broken rock and scattered boulders. In the distance, Wrath could see the dark mouth of a cave system that wound deep into the asteroid's interior. Pip flew ahead of them, scouting the path and signaling when the way was clear. Its ability to move silently through the air made it an ideal lookout. The tiny dragon guided them from boulder to boulder, always staying hidden from the search teams. They reached the cave entrance just as hegemony soldiers entered Wrath's ship. The voices grew louder as the hunters discovered the disabled beacon and the signs of tampering. Someone was shouting orders about expanding the search pattern. Deep in the cave system, Sam finally allowed them to rest. Wrath collapsed against a stone wall, his breathing slowly returning to normal now that he was free of the restraints and breathing fresh air. Sam sat nearby with Pip perched on his knee. "They will search until they find us," Wrath said quietly. "Maybe," Sam replied. "But Pip shorted out more than just your beacon. Your ship's computers show you died in the crash. As far as the official records go, there are no survivors to find." Wrath looked at the tiny dragon with new respect. "It altered the ship's logs?" "Pip is very good at making electronics do what we need them to do." Sam scratched the dragon under its chin, earning a pleased purr. "We have been partners for 3 years now. Found its egg in a derelict research ship and decided to give it a chance at life." Outside the cave, searchlights swept back and forth as hunter teams combed the crash site, but they were looking for survivors, not examining a wreck that clearly showed no life signs. After several hours, the voices grew distant as the search moved to other areas of the asteroid. Wrath found himself studying his unlikely saviors. The human showed no signs of fear or regret about helping him. The tiny dragon seemed content to sit and clean its scales while keeping one eye on the cave entrance. Both of them had risked everything for someone they had never met before. "Why?" Wrath asked again. "Your people and my people are enemies. You could have left me to die and been safe." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "Because leaving someone to die when you can save them is wrong. Does not matter what uniform they wear or what species they are. Right and wrong are not that complicated." It was such a simple answer, but it turned everything Wrath thought he knew about humans upside down. In hegemony culture, the only thing that mattered was serving the Empire. Individual conscience was considered a weakness. But this human had risked everything to follow his conscience, and somehow that made him stronger rather than weaker. Pip chirped softly and nestled closer to Sam, who smiled and stroked its tiny head. Watching them together, Wrath began to understand that there might be more to learn about humans than hegemony propaganda had taught him. 3 days passed in the cave system while hegemony search teams continued their work above. Sam had found a chamber deep enough underground that their voices would not carry to the surface. A small underground spring provided fresh water, and Sam's emergency supplies kept them fed. Pip proved surprisingly useful at catching the small cave creatures that lived in the deeper tunnels. During the long hours of hiding, the 3 unlikely companions began to share their stories. Wrath learned that Sam was not just any human salvage operator. He had once been a senior engineer for Earth defense, specializing in advanced propulsion systems and defensive technologies. His designs had powered some of humanity's most effective warships. "I spent 10 years building better ways for humans to kill each other," Sam explained as he worked on a small repair device. "Then they asked me to design weapons that could crack open civilian habitats. Bombs that would kill millions of non-combatants to break enemy morale." Wrath listened carefully. In hegemony culture, civilian casualties were simply part of warfare. The idea that someone would refuse orders based on moral objections was almost incomprehensible to him. "What did you do?" "I said no." Sam's hands stilled on his work. They said I was being naive, that war required hard choices. I told them there was nothing hard about choosing not to murder families. So I destroyed my research, deleted my files, and left Earth the same day. You became a criminal. I became free. Sam smiled grimly. Been living out here in the belt for 5 years now, fixing what I can and trying to stay ahead of anyone who wants to drag me back into the war business. Pip chirped from where it was perched on a nearby rock. The tiny dragon had been unusually quiet since they entered the caves, but now it seemed to want attention. Sam held out his hand and Pip flew over to land on his palm. Pip has a story too, Sam said. Found its egg in the wreckage of a human research vessel. The ship had been attacked and everyone aboard was dead. But the emergency systems kept one small laboratory running. Inside was a single egg in a biostasis chamber. Wrath leaned forward, curious despite himself. What kind of research? The records called it Project Symbiosis. Scientists were trying to create artificial creatures that could bond with human partners and enhance their abilities. Most of the experiments failed, but Pip's genetic line showed promise. As if responding to its name, Pip spread its tiny wings and flew to hover in front of Wrath. The alien warrior held very still as the dragon examined him with glowing eyes. After a moment, Pip landed on Wrath's outstretched hand and made a soft trilling sound. It likes you, Sam observed. Pip is usually very cautious around strangers. Wrath looked down at the small creature perched on his palm. Its scales were warm to the touch, and he could feel a faint electrical tingle where its claws gripped his skin. How does it interface with machines? Bioelectric manipulation, Sam explained. Pip can generate specific electrical patterns that interact with computer systems. It does not just hack into them, it talks to them, makes them want to cooperate. That should be impossible. A lot of things should be impossible until someone makes them work. Sam grinned. That was always my specialty as an engineer, finding ways to make impossible things possible. Pip suddenly tensed on Wrath's hand, its scales shifting to an alert orange color. The dragon launched itself into the air and flew toward the cave entrance, hovering there for a moment before returning with urgent chirps. Someone coming, Sam said, immediately gathering their supplies. Pip says it's not the search teams. They moved deeper into the cave system, following passages that Pip had scouted earlier. The tunnel they chose led downward through natural rock formations that would muffle sound and hide their heat signatures. As they walked, Wrath found himself opening up about his own situation. I am War Singer of the 3rd Battle Group, he said quietly. My people are bred for combat, trained from childhood to serve the hegemony without question. But in the last battle, I saw something that changed everything. Sam listened without judgment as Wrath described the final engagement above the human colony world. The hegemony fleet had been winning decisively when new orders came through. Instead of accepting surrender from the human defenders, they were commanded to destroy the civilian evacuation ships that were fleeing the system. Children and families trying to escape the fighting, Wrath continued. My ship was assigned to hunt them down, but I could not do it. For the first time in my life, I refused a direct order. What happened? I disabled my weapon systems and told my commander there was a malfunction. But while I was pretending to make repairs, I accessed the fleet database and downloaded classified files. Plans for attacks on neutral worlds, orders to execute prisoners, evidence of war crimes that even other hegemony warriors would find disturbing. Wrath paused as they climbed over a fallen boulder. I was planning to find some way to leak the information when my ship was damaged in the fighting. The malfunction became real, and I had to flee before my commander discovered what I had done. So you are a deserter. I am a traitor to everything I was raised to believe in. Wrath's voice carried no regret, only determination. But I could not be part of genocide anymore. They reached a larger chamber where an underground stream created a small pool of clear water. Sam called a halt to rest and refill their water containers. As they sat by the pool, Pip dove in and emerged with a small fish which it proudly presented to Sam. Good hunting, partner, Sam praised, scratching the dragon's chin. Pip preened under the attention, its scales shifting to a pleased gold color. Watching them together, Wrath felt something he had never experienced before. These two beings cared for each other without any thought of strategic advantage or military necessity. Their bond was based on simple affection and mutual respect. It was the kind of relationship that hegemony doctrine claimed was a weakness, but Wrath was beginning to see it as a strength. The data I stole, Wrath said suddenly. It contains proof of planned attacks on 17 neutral worlds. Millions of civilians will die if those orders are carried out. Sam looked up from where he was examining one of his tools. How long before the attacks begin? Perhaps 2 weeks. The hegemony moves slowly when they want to ensure complete surprise. Then we need to find a way to get that information to someone who can use it. Wrath stared at the human in amazement. You would help me betray your enemies? Even knowing it might help the hegemony war effort in other ways? Genocide is not a war effort, Sam said firmly. It is just murder on a large scale. Anyone who would prevent that kind of atrocity is on the right side, regardless of what uniform they wear. Pip chirped agreement and nuzzled against Sam's cheek. The tiny dragon seemed to understand the conversation, even if it could not speak the words. Wrath felt something shift inside him, like a weight he had carried his entire life suddenly lifting away. For the first time since childhood, he was part of something that felt genuinely right. These strange companions had shown him what it meant to choose conscience over duty, compassion over cruelty. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the cave entrance. This time, the steps were heavier and more numerous than before. Someone had brought a larger search team, and they were moving systematically through every passage in the cave system. Time was running out for all of them. The new search team moved through the caves with disturbing efficiency. Unlike the previous hunters who had searched randomly, these soldiers followed a systematic pattern that would eventually reach every chamber in the underground system. Worst of all, they brought technology that Sam had hoped never to encounter again. Truth Seeker, Wrath whispered when he heard the distinctive hum of psychic scanning equipment echoing through the stone passages. They brought a mind reader. Sam cursed quietly. He had heard stories about hegemony truth seekers during his time with Earth Defense. These psychic interrogators could track emotional imprints and mental signatures across vast distances. If one was scanning for Wrath specifically, hiding in caves would not protect them for long. Pip pressed close to Sam's chest, its scales shifting to deep purple in response to the stress it sensed from its companion. The tiny dragon's bioelectric field was fluctuating wildly, creating small sparks between its claws. Sam had never seen Pip react so strongly to anything before. We need to leave this planet, Sam said quietly. Can your ship make it to space? Wrath shook his head. Too much damage. The hyperspace drive is completely destroyed, and the main engines are barely functional. We might reach orbit, but we would be dead in space. There is an abandoned research station in the asteroid belt, Sam said, thinking quickly. About 12 hours flight from here if we push the engines hard. It was a human facility, but it has been empty for years. We could hide there while we figure out our next move. How do you know about this station? Because I helped design some of its defensive systems before I left Earth Defense. If anyone is still maintaining it, they will have equipment we can use to broadcast your stolen data. The sound of the search team was getting closer. Pip suddenly took flight and hovered near Sam's ear, chirping urgently in a pattern that Sam had learned meant extreme danger. The dragon's enhanced senses were picking up something that the humans could not yet detect. The Truth Seeker, Wrath said grimly. It has found our emotional trail. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they track us to this chamber. Sam made a decision that surprised even himself. Then we make a run for your ship. If we can reach it before they corner us here, we might have a chance. That is suicide. The ship is surrounded by hunter teams. Not if we give them something more interesting to chase. Sam pulled a device from his tool belt that Wrath had not seen before. It looked like a modified communicator, but with additional circuits that Pip had clearly helped install. This is going to be loud and obvious, but it should draw their attention long enough for us to reach your ship. They moved quickly through the cave system, following passages that led back toward the surface. Pip flew ahead, scouting for guards and signaling when the way was clear. The tiny dragon's ability to move silently made it the perfect advanced scout. As they climbed toward the cave entrance, Sam activated his modified communicator. Immediately, a powerful signal began broadcasting from their location on multiple frequencies. The signal was designed to look like an emergency beacon from a different type of ship entirely, one that had supposedly crashed on the far side of the asteroid. Human distress signal, Sam explained as they heard shouts from the search teams. Every hegemony unit on this rock will want to investigate. They think they have found survivors from a human scout ship. The deception worked even better than Sam had hoped. Through the cave entrance, they could see lights moving rapidly away from Wrath's crash site as the hunter teams rushed to investigate the false signal. Within minutes, the area around the damaged fighter was almost deserted. They sprinted across the open ground to reach Wrath's ship. Sam immediately began examining the damage while Pip flew inside to interface with the ship's systems. The little dragon's scales glowed brightly as it worked to restart dormant circuits and bypass damaged components. "The engines will work," Sam announced after a few minutes of intensive examination. "Not well, but they will work. The navigation system is completely destroyed, but I can rig manual controls. The main problem is life support for a long flight. How long can we survive? With 3 of us breathing the recycled air? Maybe 8 hours if we are very careful with the power consumption." Wrath did quick calculations in his head. "That gives us no safety margin at all. If we encounter any delays or problems, we die in space." "Better than dying here," Sam replied, already starting his repairs. "At least in space we have a chance." Pip chirped from inside the ship and projected a holographic display showing the vessel's current status. The tiny dragon had managed to restore power to most systems, but the structural damage was severe. Flying the ship would be like riding a controlled explosion through space. Sam began modifying the ship's systems with salvaged human technology from his own toolkit. The combination of human and alien engineering created solutions that neither species would have developed alone. Pip served as the interface between the two technologies, its bioelectric abilities allowing seamless integration of incompatible systems. "Your little dragon is remarkable," Wrath observed as he watched Pip coordinate the repairs. "I have never seen anything work with machines the way it does." "Pip is one of a kind," Sam agreed. "The research project that created the dragon was destroyed during a hegemony raid. All the other specimens were killed and most of the scientists died defending their work. While they worked, the search teams were discovering that Sam's false beacon was just that. False." Angry voices on the communication channels indicated that the hunters were returning to the original crash site. They had perhaps 30 minutes before the area would be swarming with soldiers again. Sam made final adjustments to the navigation system while Wrath prepared the engines for immediate departure. Pip flew between them, checking connections and optimizing power flows with its electrical abilities. The ship would never pass a safety inspection, but it might hold together long enough to reach the research station. "There is something else," Wrath said as they completed their preparations. "The Truth Seeker will be able to track my mental signature even in space. As long as I am alive, they will know where to find us." Sam looked up from the control panel he was rewiring. "Then we make sure they cannot follow." "How?" "By giving them a bigger problem to worry about." Sam smiled grimly. "Your stolen data. If we can find a way to broadcast it while we are escaping, the hegemony will have more pressing concerns than chasing one runaway war singer." Wrath felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. Broadcasting the data would expose the hegemony's planned atrocities, but it would also make them the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy. Every hegemony ship would be hunting them. Pip chirped urgently from the pilot's seat, its scales flashing red. Through the viewport, they could see lights approaching in the distance. The search teams were coming back, and this time they were bringing heavy equipment. "Time to go," Sam announced, sealing the last repair hatch. "Pip, are you ready to fly something that should not be able to fly?" The tiny dragon trilled what sounded like excitement and dove into the ship's navigation system. Its scales began glowing as it took direct control of the flight systems, becoming a living computer that could react instantly to changing conditions. Wrath strapped himself into the co-pilot seat while Sam took the main controls. The engines came to life with a roar that shook the entire ship. Pieces of damaged hull plating fell away as they lifted off, but the vessel held together. As they climbed toward space, Sam began preparing the communication array for the most important broadcast of his life. Space around Dust Rock 7 filled with hegemony warships as the escape attempt triggered every alarm in the sector. 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen fighter escorts moved to intercept the damaged alien vessel that was struggling toward the asteroid belt. The Truth Seeker's ship led the pursuit, its psychic scanning arrays focused like a spear point on Wrath's mental signature. Inside the fleeing ship, Sam fought to keep the damaged engines running while Pip interfaced directly with every system simultaneously. The tiny dragon's scales glowed white-hot with the effort of coordinating repairs, navigation, and defensive systems all at once. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits as the hybrid human-alien technology pushed far beyond its design limits. "They are gaining on us," Wrath reported from the sensor station. "The lead ship will be in weapons range in less than 10 minutes. Sam's hands flew over the communication controls, trying to set up the equipment they would need to broadcast Wrath's stolen data. But the powerful transmission array required more power than their damaged ship could safely provide. Using it would likely destroy their engines completely. "We get one shot at this," Sam said grimly. "Once we start broadcasting, we will be dead in space. They will board us within minutes. Then we make those minutes count." Wrath began transferring the encrypted files to the communication system. "These records will prove to the galaxy that the hegemony plans genocide. Even if we die, the truth will survive." Pip suddenly abandoned its integration with the ship's systems and flew directly to Sam's shoulder. The tiny dragon pressed its claws against Sam's temple, and immediately Sam felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through his mind. Colors seemed brighter, sounds became clearer, and his thoughts moved with unusual speed and precision. "What is happening?" Sam asked, but even as he spoke, he began to understand. Pip was establishing a mental link with him, sharing its enhanced cognitive abilities through bioelectric contact. The dragon chirped once, then launched itself toward Wrath. When Pip touched the alien warrior's forehead, Wrath gasped as the same enhancement flooded his consciousness. For the first time in their lives, the three companions could sense each other's thoughts and emotions directly. Through Pip's connection, Sam felt Wrath's memories of the battle that had driven him to desertion. He experienced the aliens' horror at orders to massacre civilian evacuation ships, the crushing weight of a lifetime spent following immoral commands. In return, Wrath felt Sam's determination to preserve life and freedom, his unshakable belief that every sentient being deserved dignity and choice. Both humans and alien were overwhelmed by Pip's simple but profound emotions: unconditional love for its chosen family, fierce protective instincts, and an innocent joy in using its abilities to help others. The tiny dragon's pure heart became a bridge between two very different minds. "We can do this together," Sam said, and his voice carried absolute certainty. "Pip, can you interface with the hegemony ship's communication systems while we broadcast?" The dragon's response came as a feeling rather than words. Complete confidence mixed with eager anticipation. Pip had been waiting its entire short life for a chance to use its full abilities for something truly important. Working in perfect coordination through their mental link, the three began the most dangerous hack in galactic history. Sam used his engineering knowledge to route power through every available system, while Wrath provided the military codes needed to access hegemony communication channels. Pip became a living transmission array, reaching out with bioelectric tendrils to touch every ship in the pursuing fleet. The first cruiser to receive the data transmission was the Truth Seeker's vessel. The psychic interrogator was so focused on tracking Wrath's mental signature that he did not notice the information flooding his ship's computers until it was too late. Classified files burst across every screen on the bridge, detailed plans for attacks on neutral worlds, orders to execute prisoners, evidence of systematic war crimes. Through their link, Sam and Wrath felt the shock and revulsion of hegemony crew members as they saw the truth about their empire's intentions. War singers who had believed they were fighting honorable battles discovered they were being used as tools for genocide. Officers who had followed orders without question suddenly understood the true nature of those commands. The reaction spread like wildfire through the fleet as Pip's transmission reached every ship simultaneously. On some vessels, crews turned on their officers in rage at being deceived. On others, commanders who had secretly harbored doubts about their orders finally found the courage to act on their conscience. The Truth Seeker himself was among the first casualties. When he tried to use his psychic abilities to suppress the information, several war singers on his own ship stunned him unconscious. They had seen enough truth to know that some secrets should not be kept. "It is working," Wrath said with amazement as reports flooded in from across the fleet. "Half the ships have stopped pursuing us. The others are fighting each other." But their success came at a terrible cost. The massive power drain from the transmission was destroying their engines one system at a time. Pip's scales were flickering from white to red as the tiny dragon pushed its abilities beyond all safe limits. Sam could feel through their link that Pip was in pain but refused to stop until the job was finished. "The station," Sam managed to say as their engines finally died completely. Can we reach it on emergency power? Through the viewport, they could see the research station in the distance, a small collection of modules and docking bays that had been hidden among the asteroids for years. It looked abandoned and dark, but Sam knew that appearances could be deceiving. Pip marshaled its remaining strength for one final effort. Instead of trying to restart their engines, the Dragon reached out to the station itself. Ancient systems that had been dormant for years suddenly came to life as Pip's bioelectric touch awakened them. Emergency docking protocols activated, and mechanical arms reached out to guide their ship safely to an airlock. As they docked with the station, the mental link between the three companions began to fade. Pip's exhaustion made it impossible to maintain the connection any longer. The tiny dragon collapsed on Sam's chest, its scales gray with fatigue but its eyes bright with satisfaction. Behind them, the hegemony fleet was in complete chaos. Some ships were fleeing the system, carrying the news of atrocities to other parts of the galaxy. Others remained to fight a civil war that would reshape their entire civilization. The data that Wrath had risked everything to steal was now spreading beyond all hope of containment. "We did it," Sam said softly, cradling Pip in his hands. "The truth is out there now. No one can stop it." Wrath looked back at the distant battle between ships that had once been allies. He felt no joy at the destruction, but he knew it was necessary. Sometimes the only way to end evil was to expose it so completely that good people could no longer ignore it. "What happens now?" Wrath asked. Sam smiled as he helped Pip recover its strength. "Now we find out what else is waiting for us on this station. Something tells me we are about to discover that we are not the only ones who believe in doing the right thing." As if in response to his words, lights began coming on throughout the research station. Someone was home after all. The airlock cycled open to reveal a sight that none of them had expected. Instead of the abandoned research facility Sam remembered, the station bustled with quiet activity. Beings from dozens of different species moved through the corridors with purposeful efficiency, all working together on projects that seemed to blend science, engineering, and hope in equal measure. An elderly human woman approached their docking port, flanked by a tall alien with silver skin and a shorter creature that looked like it had evolved from some kind of aquatic species. All three wore simple work clothes marked with the same symbol, a circle containing representations of many different worlds. "Sam Chen," the woman said with a warm smile. "We have been waiting for you to find us for 3 years." Sam stared at her in recognition. "Professor Williams? But you died in the hegemony raid on the bio-research facility." "Officially, yes. In reality, we evacuated the most important people and projects before the attack, including several eggs from the symbiosis program." She looked down at Pip, who was perched alertly on Sam's shoulder. "We wondered what happened to the last one." The silver-skinned alien stepped forward and placed a hand over his heart in what Sam recognized as a formal greeting. "I am Elder Jorik, formerly of the Hegemony 3rd Science Division. Like your companion Wrath, I found that conscience outweighed duty when faced with orders I could not follow. The aquatic being made a series of musical sounds that the station's translation system converted to words. Commander Deepsong of the Free Swimmers. My people were neutral until the hegemony began poisoning our ocean worlds. Now we fight in our own way." As they walked through the station, Sam began to understand what he was seeing. This was not just a hidden base. It was a complete society built by refugees, deserters, and exiles from every major faction in the galaxy. Humans worked alongside former hegemony scientists. War singers like Wrath collaborated with species they had once been trained to conquer. "How many people live here?" Wrath asked, clearly overwhelmed by the diversity around them. "About 2,000 permanent residents," Professor Williams replied. "But we have contact with hidden communities on dozens of worlds. What you see here is just the beginning of something much larger." They entered a vast central chamber where multiple species worked together on what appeared to be ship construction. But these were unlike any vessels Sam had ever seen. The designs blended technologies from every known civilization, creating ships that were more advanced than anything the hegemony or Earth defense had ever produced. "We call ourselves the Builders," Elder Jorik explained. "While others fight wars of conquest and domination, we create tools for exploration and protection. Our ships carry families seeking new homes, not soldiers seeking new battles." Pip suddenly became very excited, chirping loudly and flying in rapid circles around the chamber. Sam followed its flight path and saw what had captured the dragon's attention: Other symbiotic creatures were working throughout the facility. Some were larger than Pip, others smaller, but all showed the same bioelectric abilities and obvious intelligence. The Symbiosis Project was our greatest success, Professor Williams said proudly. Each bonded pair becomes something greater than the sum of their parts. Human creativity and adaptability enhanced by engineered intelligence and abilities. We have 43 active partnerships now. One of the other symbiotic creatures, a sleek serpentine being with opalescent scales, glided over to examine Pip. The two dragons touched nose to nose and immediately began communicating in rapid bioelectric pulses that created visible sparks in the air. Sam felt an echo of their conversation through his bond with Pip. Excitement, curiosity, and joy at finding others of their kind. Commander Deepsong led them to an observation deck that looked out over the asteroid field. But what Sam saw there made him catch his breath. Hidden among the rocks were dozens of ships representing every known species, all bearing the Builder's symbol. More were arriving even as they watched. Your broadcast 3 days ago changed everything, Commander Deepsong explained. Beings throughout the galaxy are finally seeing the truth about the powers that have controlled them. Many are choosing to leave those powers behind. The hegemony civil war has torn their empire apart, Elder Jorik added. Warsingers are abandoning their posts, entire worlds are declaring independence, and the truth seekers have lost all credibility. It will take them decades to recover if they ever do. Professor Williams gestured toward the construction bays where new ships were taking shape. Meanwhile, Earth defense is struggling with their own crisis. Your data included evidence of human war crimes as well as alien ones. Many of our people are questioning whether endless war is really the answer to their problems. Wrath looked out at the growing fleet with something approaching wonder. What will you do with all these ships? Explore, Sam said, understanding dawning in his voice. You are planning to leave this whole region of space behind and start over somewhere new. Not just somewhere new, Professor Williams corrected. Everywhere new. The galaxy is vast, and there are countless worlds that could support life if we terraformed them properly. Worlds where our children could grow up without learning to hate each other. Pip chirped and projected a holographic star map that showed potential destinations beyond the current boundaries of known space. Dozens of systems with habitable planets glowed in soft blue light, each one representing a chance for a fresh beginning. We have the technology, Elder Jorik said. Ships that can travel farther and faster than anything the old powers possess. Terraforming equipment that can turn barren rocks into garden worlds. Most importantly, we have people from every species working together toward the same goal. Which is? Wrath asked. Peace, Commander Deepsong replied simply. Not the peace of conquest or submission, but the peace of building something better than what came before. Sam felt Pip's excitement building as the dragon interfaced with the station's central computer and absorbed information about dozens of ongoing projects, new technologies, new worlds, new possibilities for cooperation between species that had never worked together before. You want us to join you, Sam said. We want you to lead, Professor Williams corrected. Your escape from Dust Rock 7, your successful broadcast of the truth, your demonstration that enemies can become allies. These things have made you heroes to people throughout the galaxy. The symbol of what we can accomplish when we choose cooperation over conflict. Wrath looked uncomfortable with the idea of being anyone's hero. I am still a warsinger. I have done terrible things in service to the hegemony. Which is exactly why your voice matters, Elder Jorik replied. When a warrior chooses peace, others listen. Your story proves that anyone can change, that no one is permanently bound by the mistakes of their past. Through the observation windows, Sam watched as a massive transport ship arrived carrying what appeared to be entire families from multiple species. Children of different worlds played together in the zero-gravity docking bay, while their parents discussed plans for new colonies. It was exactly the kind of future he had dreamed about during his years of exile. The first colonization fleet launches in 6 months, Professor Williams said. 50 ships carrying 10,000 volunteers to 7 different star systems. We want you 3 to lead the flagship mission to the most promising world. Pip chirped enthusiastically and projected images of a blue-green planet with vast oceans and empty continents perfect for settlement. Sam could feel the dragon's eagerness to explore new places and help build new homes. Wrath studied the planet data with the analytical mind of a military strategist, but now he was planning for construction instead of conquest. What about the wars back here? Wrath asked. The hegemony will eventually recover, And Earth defense still has powerful fleets. Let them fight over the ashes of their old empires, Commander Deepsong said with finality. We will be building new worlds for our children. When they are ready to give up their hatred, they will know where to find us. Sam looked at his companions, the alien warrior who had chosen conscience over duty, and the tiny dragon who had bridged the gap between former enemies. Together, they had already changed the galaxy in ways that would echo for generations. Now they had a chance to do something even more important. When do we start? Sam asked. 6 months later, the colonization ship New Harmony launched toward its distant destination. Its hull bore a simple inscription that captured everything the builders hoped to achieve. Built by hands that chose to heal. In the ship's command center, Sam worked alongside Raph to coordinate the complex logistics of moving 10,000 colonists across interstellar space. Pip had grown larger and more capable, serving as the living link between all the ship's systems while maintaining its bonds with Sam and Wrath. Behind them, the wars continued to rage between the old powers. But ahead of them lay clean worlds under foreign stars, places where the galaxy's children might finally learn to build instead of destroy. The future stretched out like an endless frontier, full of hope and possibility. Sam smiled as he felt Pip's contentment through their shared bond. The tiny dragon that had once taken aim at a damaged alien ship had helped them all find their target, a better tomorrow for everyone willing to reach for it.